Okay, we're here with Mr. Bryan JL Glass, writer of Mice Templar and Furious.
Woo!
We're live. I better put on my radio voice.
Hey guys, it's great to be here.
So, we ask every guest the first time they're on the show, how did you first start reading comics, and what were the events that brought you to Comic Book Jones?
Wow. I started reading comics in my early teens. I had a neighbor on my block who, his older brothers collected the coverless books when they would go to the barber shop and that kind of thing. So my neighbor just had a suitcase full of old coverless comics. And that's where I discovered my early favorites were the Avengers, the original Teen Titans, and Legion of Superheroes.
Awesome.
And then from there, as I entered high school, I discovered an actual bona fide comic book shop and started frequenting there after school. And this was the era of, let's see, what did I get to experience? The Byrne Claremont X-Men years.
Oh, okay.
Walt Simonson's Thor, month by month.
Wow.
Frank Miller's Daredevil, and was there for the beginning of Dark Knight and Watchmen as individual issues and having to wait an entire month or more for the next issue to come out. Fantastic time to be reading comics. Surpassed only by today.
Yes. And,
That was so good. So, you still read a lot of those current titles?
When I can. I mean, being a professional writer, time is very limited. I try, at this point, pretty much I'm reading what I'm assigned, and I read the books of friends, and meanwhile I try to keep up with novels and things I'm trying to read for entertainment, so my days of enjoying comics have kind of passed me by. It's very, very tragic.
Was there anything, maybe one book that you do look forward to every month or when it's collected?
I'm really digging Brian Bendis' all new X-Men.
Yes.
And Jason Aaron's Thor, which just transitioned.
Both of those are terrific.
Both of those are like the peak of the craft.
Yeah, Aaron's run on Thor is definitely a nice breath of fresh air for a book I needed, but
Now, if you're reading all new X-Men, are you reading Uncanny X-Men, or are you just enjoying it by itself?
I'm reading the two titles
Okay.
in conjunction. It's a lot of fun.
well, what events brought you to wonderful Wcbj?
Whoa! CBJ was a fateful encounter one dark and stormy night with Socko Jones. Do I tell the vampire one or the zombie? Oh no, just he ran into me at a convention and said, "You ought to be at my store." And I said, "Sure, I'd love to be at your store."
And then that resulted in a barrel roll.
Yes! I'm an old man that does dive rolls.
Yes.
Very
Which
exciting.
is pretty fantastic.
That was what?
Exceedingly well.
5 years ago? 6 years
That was
ago?
about 5 years ago.
And he still does them.
Yeah, awesome.
I know the first time you were here was around the time Dark Knight came out.
Dark Knight.
I believe
Oh,
so.
movie.
Oh, the movie?
Movie,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because I remember you doing the Joker voice.
Yes.
Are you sure? Let me see. I wasn't prepared to do this. Do you want to tell me, do you want me to tell you how I learned to do the Joker voice? Never mind.
Fish just wanted to hear that voice.
I was actually outside when it happened, so I never actually heard it.
I think that was a pretty awful Joker voice on my part. I didn't know to prepare for it.
now, it seems like everyone seems to have a different version of how they broke into creating comics. Were you just like kidnapped in the middle of the night, or thank you.
I asked you not to bring that up. No, actually, I went to school for filmmaking and got my in the end useless degree. And because I wasn't really ready to move up to New York or move out to California, I spent the first 10 years trying locally out of Philadelphia to get what filmmaking work I could. And I rapidly realized as my first decade approached that I seemed destined for a career in either commercials or industrial films. And I realized deep down what I thought was a burning desire to be a filmmaker was actually a burning desire to be a storyteller, and I had simply chosen film as my medium. And so I had to make an abrupt early 30s career. Off we go, and transitioned my storytelling into rapid crash course in English major, and became a writer.
And
Pretty
were
awesome.
comics the first thing you started writing? Or?
Well, I thought at the time that I thought writing novels would be very cool. I'd still be willing to do that. I kind of looked at myself as not a comic book writer, not a novel writer, not a screenplay writer. I'm a storyteller, and I will tell stories through whatever means open up. So in the early 90s, I thought to myself, well, while I'm writing a great American novel on the side, I know comic books inside out. And I decided to become one of those self-publishers, and I chose the 1990s to become a self-publisher.
I was probably great for like 6 months.
That long? Probably 4 months. And then Marvel declared bankruptcy and the distributor wars. And next thing you know, distributors were declaring bankruptcy, going out of business, and owing little tiny self-publishers hundreds and thousands of dollars that we could not absorb those costs. And by 1998, I thought I was out of the business forever.
Wow.
What brought you back in?
Michael Avon Oeming.
All right.
That's a pretty good name to drag.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well actually,
yeah.
I've been friends with Mike Oeming since 1989, cool story. I was introduced to Mike Oeming in '89 by fellow role-playing gamer Adam Hughes.
That's pretty cool.
So from 1989 to 1991, there was a role-playing group in New Jersey that had Bryan JL Glass, Michael Avon Oeming, and Adam Hughes, all gaming Star Wars and Marvel superheroes.
That's who you know.
That is awesome.
And so,
Pretty
What do
terrific.
you call that?
yeah, so a lot of my early 90s comic work, did all these very obscure titles with Mike Oeming. The book I self-published was called Spandex Tights, The Adventures of the Aerobic Duo. I did another book with Mike called Ship of Fools that started at Caliber and then jumped over to Image before Image's black and white experiment failed. And so then when we both thought we were dropping out of comics, what pulled Mike back in was a call he received from his fellow friend, Brian Michael Bendis, and they conceived Powers together. And this is very timely because at New York Comic Con this weekend is going to be the first Powers television panel for the show that debuts in December. And that is absolutely incredible to have been ringside through all of the hopes and the dreams and the dashed hopes and the shattered dreams.
Yeah, it's gone through a lot of development.
Yeah, true development hell. And 14 years later, it's about to debut, and they're super excited about it.
Imagine.
Yeah. So after Brian Bendis brought Mike back into the biz, and Mike got his feet back under him and reinvented himself with the style he's known for on Powers, and then he reached back to me and said, hey, remember there was that Quixote project we were going to do in the late 90s. And I wrote scripts, and he did a little bit of art, but he said, look, I don't have the time to come back and do the art, but if you adapt your scripts into a novel, I'll provide illustrations. And that became my entree back into the world of comics. My novel, Quixote, published by Image. It's the only supernatural horror version of the classic Cervantes comedy.
And then that eventually worked its way into doing Mice Templar.
Yeah, actually, he asked me to return to Quixote in 2002, and 1 year later, he presented me with notes for a series he wanted to do called The Mice Templar. Quixote came out in '05, Templar came out after 4 years of development in '07, and here we are 7 years later, 1 year away from its grand finale climax.
That must be a great feeling.
Yeah, very much so.
The 18-foot long poster we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
That's of Mice Templar.
Yeah, that was Volume 4, Legend number 12. That actually appeared in the comic. It's the first big battle of the seemingly restored Templar. I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, the opening of that issue was pretty awesome. There's one of the main characters screaming charge and then going into.
Well, before we get into that, people that might not know, I mean, first time you came here, you were working on Mice Templar. That was 5-6 years ago, and now you're just a year or two out from the end. So for those who might not be familiar with the book, this is obviously like you and Mike Oeming's core book for these number of years. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Kind of give us a brief synopsis?
Yeah, well, we say humorously, but somewhat truthfully, Mice Templar is a lot like Game of Thrones, but on a really, really small scale. I say we have none of the sex, but twice the betrayals and beheadings. And but Mice Templar, a little more seriously, is it's a fantasy saga, a young hero, coming of age tale, hero's journey tale. It's got political intrigue, religious intrigue, sociological intrigue. It's got romance, it's got comedy, it's got dark horror and tragedy. It's pretty much anything you'd be interested in a comic series. This little adventure about these mice ends up covering that ground in some capacity. And we knew from the very beginning when it started that there was an end game in sight, and now here we are a decade later actually pursuing the end game.
How excited are you to finish the story?
It's a mixed bag.
I mean, it has to be a little bit sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to finally be done with this thing, and at the same time, there's the excitement of story elements that were outlined literally a decade ago, and now I'm scripting them, and it's like, this is surreal. Like
Yeah.
things like The Charge. It's one issue that's almost a cover-to-cover battlefield charge that rolls out as one big piece of artwork, which they witnessed here.
I've read lots of comics, and I've seen more like 4-page splash pages, upwards of 5, 22 pages. It might not be one continuous splash, but it's one continuous piece of art.
Yes. Yep. The same characters keep repeating across the
Yes.
page, every 2-page spread. So action is actually, it's not just spectacle for the sake of spectacle.
Yes, it's longer than our back issue is.
It's over. It's over a foot longer.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there any more of that cake?
Babyface, by the
Cake for
Now, you also write Furious.
Ah, yes I do, for Dark Horse Comics.
that just started about 2 months ago.
the first trade tap.
Yeah.
Yes, began in January. Actually, Furious, first of all, I'm going to say I was remiss to not mention Victor Santos on Mice Templar, but
Right.
it was a perfect jumping in point. Victor Santos, the artist on Furious at Dark Horse, he both pencils, ink, or not both, but he pencils, inks, and colors Furious. And he's been the artist on Mice Templar ever since Mike Oeming did the first 6 issues. Then he passed the baton to Victor, and Victor's been drawing Mice Templar for like the last 6 years.
Nice. And it's consistently beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did you two get hooked up doing this book?
Well, again through Mike Oeming. Mike was the one that originally introduced us to Victor. Victor has never been to the States. Oh, I actually got some cake with a nipple. Gosh. So moving into Furious. So Mike brought Victor aboard when he knew he was going to have to be leaving Templar, but he knew that would be leaving me high and dry. So, cake. So he had met Victor at a convention in Spain, brought Victor aboard, and I was terrified at the prospect of, I've been working with Mike Oeming all these years, and now I have to work with not only a stranger, but a stranger who at the time didn't really speak English. And one of my first communications with Victor was, would you like me to kind of simplify my scripts? I had a kind of a script writing rapport with Mike Oeming, so if I simplify this, would that work for you? And he just wrote back saying, no, I want a future in American comics. You write the way you wrote for Mike. And now this year, 2014, he's one of the rising stars of the industry, and it's awesome to have been there with him. Regarding Furious and Victor Santos, I was originally developing Furious with an artist named Josh Medors, who was known at Image and I forget a couple of other companies. But he had a very long, drawn-out battle with cancer, and he thought he was clear, and Furious was going to be Josh's comeback book. And we started developing it. He worked on it for 6 months. Cancer came back, and we lost him 3 months later. And here's my baby Furious, and wow, I don't know what to do with it. And that's when, again, Mike Oeming stepped in, and he called me, and he kind of talked me through all the tragedy, and said, look, why don't you talk to Victor? And I said, yeah, but where are we going to go? And he said, well, I can talk to some people at Dark Horse who might be interested. in looking at this project. So I spoke to Victor. Victor said, "You, me, American superheroes, I'm in." And that night we presented the material to Dark Horse, and by the next morning, Dark Horse was, "Yeah, we love this. We're putting it into the pipeline." And like 90 days later, it was greenlit, and
Nice.
the book debuted in January of this year.
And what's the book about? What's the hook?
Furious is the story of a former child star who has grown up to become one of these tabloid trash celebrities that we all love to hate and ridicule. She's the butt of jokes, and she's just a miserable, awful human being. And through an experimental drug rehab, she not only gets cleaned up and has her moment of clarity that, oh my God, I'm a monster, but she also starts to develop superpowers and kind of naively says it's a world without superheroes. And she goes, wow, I can fly, I can put my fist through a wall, I can get hit and not be hurt. What do people do in the comics and movies and television? They become superheroes, and she thinks, wow, I'm an actress. I will play the role of a superhero, and I'll redeem myself. And then the conundrum becomes, yeah, but the moment the world knows it's really you undo your own redemption. So it explores a lot of different topics, from our fascination, media and public's fascination with fame, how we build heroes, we tear heroes down.
It's nice construction. I love it.
Yeah,
No, it was a lot of fun.
so it's furious. Five issues from Dark Horse. There's the Volume 1 trade, Fallen Star, is out now, and we needed to do really, really well if you
Buy
want
it.
to see Volume 2.
Go to Dark Horse at every convention and demand Volume 2 of Furious to be picked up.
Yes, I would actually endorse that.
Yeah.
With Comic-Con coming up this weekend, will you be at the Dark Horse booth? Do you have your own booth?
Long, I will be at the Dark Horse booth on Thursday at some time. That's like tomorrow.
That's right,
Yeah.
this goes live after Thursday, so it's okay.
Okay, so I was at the Dark Horse booth yesterday, and I had a really, really good time. Thanks for everybody that came
Are
out.
you going to be in Artist Alley at all? Or?
I will be in Artist Alley. I'm in Q7. I think I'm Q17.
You also said you also bagged it too.
Yeah, my wife, who is often known as the Amazing Judy at conventions, she has made homemade Mice Templar bags and Furious bags, and she'll be joining me this weekend and selling them at our table. And we've got hardcovers and soft covers and individual issues and posters and the big charge print and bags. And bags.
We'll drop some pickles on, just leave on the table. Just so
Me and pickles. It's like me and cockroaches. We do
Gotcha.
not get along.
Not even in Kool-Aid.
I'll push my wife.
Not even
I love how Chris Carbonaro gave us all cake and no forks.
Yeah, give everyone cake and no
And
utensils.
Just
and
use her
us
Not
being like,
fancy
no, like we're gonna eat it on the podcast because that's great audio.
Classic guy.
Forks? Just for the nipple.
The black dick you left was full of skewers. I can hand those out to
Yeah.
people if you want. So, well, I have one question. You say you try to keep on writing for yourself for entertainment purposes. What authors in particular do you try to follow? Or any particular book series, if that makes it a little easier.
Well, it's really easy. I went from being a Stephen King fan to naturally now really enjoying Joe Hill. Really, really phenomenal stuff. And,
We're all big fans of Lock and Key, so.
yeah. Yep.
The Cape is fantastic.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. Just finished that the other day. It's just so.
That book coming out, so it's a Shadow Show.
I've been told to read great. Here's one novel they just did a prequel for.
Mm.
You read it?
I haven't read that.
Okay. I did. It was pretty intriguing. Cool. So do you have any other plans? I know you have any other plans in the book right now, or?
Well, at the moment, while we're hoping that Furious Volume 2 gets greenlit and the end next year, the end of Mice Templar, I'm also developing 3 supernatural horror series that I can't talk about publishers or where their home is, but 3 supernatural horror. I'm a man of many genres. Ooh, look, a nipple.
As you mentioned before, we have New York Comic Con coming up this weekend.
Thursday and Friday were awesome.
Yes, if you're
So
if
what's up?
If you are.
right after the podcast is up on Friday afternoon. Let's go around the table. I'm going to start with Rob. Just because I want everyone to give me a prediction for New York Comic Con. Something that will happen.
Someone's gonna eat one. People are gonna be eating your pickles.
That would be good.
That was my prediction. Like I
If
said,
they're brought along.
I was gonna bring a jar. We need snacks on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think security will.
Tell me something that will happen and something that won't happen.
Something that will happen, I know Tiger will be there and Waffle, and something that won't happen is I will not be there.
Wait, so you will be there.
Huh?
Is there
I
something
will
that
not
won't
be there.
happen?
All right, so I will not be there. No.
That's very valid.
I'll be lurking. So
Not a Comic Con.
right.
Tony?
Well, the thing that will happen will be the same thing I predicted for San Diego Comic Con. Someone will probably get a, panic attack or an asthma attack, and will probably have to be sorted out. And the thing that won't happen is that George Perez is not going to be there because apparently he can't. Really, you're going to have this discussion again? What's wrong with you?
I'd like to predict something that will happen. Someone's gonna point you out as the guy that was eating that giant black.
You know what?
Attached to a person.
I have no problem with that because it means we're getting that much more listeners.
That's actually a really good point.
I hope the one guy we have in Zambia, Africa.
Is that New York Comic Con?
Just that we can.
I didn't learn my English from these fuckers.
Tony, you eat black cow. You eat black cow.
I hope at least one person learns English from us.
You just got an email. How do I taste?
Tiger.
Let's see. The Diamond Retailer Breakfast will suck. And
Is that
what
a tradition?
We'll know who
won't
Titan is
happen
this year.
Is that the show will not smell good in general.
Okay.
Thursday last year smelled like hot. The year before.
I don't know how to feel about that.
Ryan, you assuming you're gonna come down with con food?
Hopefully not. But yeah, what's definitely going to happen is I'm going to go in there this weekend, rock the place, and come out with 15 new projects from all the major publishers.
Awesome.
And what's not going to happen is me being able to tell anybody about any of them.
Babyface.
I forgot what I was
I'm ready to hear Marvel's half-assed excuse why Fantastic Four is gonna get
I was thinking of saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the CEO is a tiff with fucking Sony or whatever.
Fox.
Fox,
Yeah,
same fucking
Fox.
difference. Everyone else so.
And evidently, Chris Claremont declared that X-Men writers are not allowed to create new characters.
Yeah.
Chris Claremont is not in any kind of power seat whatsoever.
No,
in Marvel. That's like Stan Lee going, "I'm the king of the world."
Yeah, it was like,
Well, see, that made me think that does that mean Brian Michael Bendis was the last one allowed to make new?
He didn't.
I have no idea. That
Most
was
of those people were brought in under the guise of new Marvel characters and not in the X-Men franchise. Any of the characters he's brought in, anything he's created, has been under Marvel banners.
Well, hold on, Kenny X-Men, the whole new team.
That's what I mean. They've worked it in different ways. I've read into it because they've made it so none of these characters can be put to the movies.
Okay.
And that's why you see development on X-Men slowing down. That's why that's going to be canceled at 6:45 because free publicity doesn't help them at all, honestly. But
Yeah. Well, what will happen is it will be crowded. What won't happen is I'll be able to run around.
I hope I find another chicken on the She-Hulk.
What?
Well, last year there was a woman walking around that body was a ball, and she just had gangly arms and legs, and she was just a ball of a woman dressed as She-Hulk. She looked like a moving chicken nugget dressed as She-Hulk. Chicken nugget, She-Hulk. I made some dude outside cry. I think it was me and Danny. Danny was crying. Some random stranger 25 feet away from me overheard me, saw what I was talking about, and almost fell to the floor. She-Hulk.
one thing that I think will happen is DC will announce a new handful of titles.
That would be canceled by the middle of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say, most of which will be canceled around issue 8.
Oh, issue 8. You're going. That's double the actual allotment.
If you're optimistic, you think we can make it half a year.
Yeah, and
But Elliot was filming my ass.
what won't happen, unfortunately, is a giant battle in the middle of the floor between all of the Doctor Who cosplayers and all of the Poison Ivy cosplayers.
And then the New York Jedis come in and fuck everybody's day up with their fiberglass sticks.
Entice that. Make that happen.
Entice that. What, are you gonna walk around with cinnamon buns going, fight! Like, you entice that kind of brawl.
Just like that.
Did the Naruto kids come in and be like, our show's ending? Just to get angry?
Magneto
And then Ed sits there just as Kingpin going, yes.
I think he gets bludgeoned by a Magneto player with a cinder block.
Anyone here ever judged a cosplay contest?
In my mind.
I would like to know what the criteria is. for how you
Just
decide
as like I'd like to know the criteria for winning an air guitar championship.
Do they?
It's made up on the spot.
Oh no, there is.
I know there's rules.
There's a rubric.
I know.
I thought the only criteria was they look really good and pulled that off.
You look like shit. Like,
It's like, who are you supposed to be?
Superman doesn't wear a cardboard box. Like, Skeletor doesn't have a hot dog car.
That character is
Come on.
not that big.
I don't know.
Oh, that's that you can't.
Once
use.
again with the cheap shots.
No, it wasn't you. I was pointing to air. Aaron's in the air.
See, now if you wanted a simple cheap shot, be like, hey, so when are you gonna be Bounce Boy?
See, that's actually really good.
Legion.
No, I mean, I already did the blob joke to you before.
Oh man, if you go as Bouncing Boy when you're all dressed as Potter.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been telling you.
And we'll have the weirdest cosplay photo shoots ever.
That would be weird. I have to dye my hair black though.
And I need to suddenly grow body hair.
I would say, hey, for the greatest fake mustache in existence, if you went, I would put solid money.
Oh, no,
How
we-
much is the greatest fake
Fake
mustache?
mustache.
I don't give a fuck. If he's willing to go through his cup, I'll pay the
Meat
fucking
Stop is
price.
That's a good
Buck
idea,
has
though.
full facial hair though.
Brian, can I steal some jeans?
Sure, I've got some right here in my pocket.
Awesome.
They're magic jeans. You plant them in your yard.
Wait, so the gene beans that someone sold me aren't real?
Curse you, magic beans.
Oh, you can't live with magic beans. But I want them to see. So, did you enjoy your day today, Brian?
I had a fantastic
Are you
time.
looking forward to your weekend?
Very much
Oh, I
so.
hope this was a good start to a good weekend.
It's the best way I could have kicked off New York Comic Con.
Awesome. Thanks.
Glad to hear it.